All right. Well, we can get started. Welcome to the Tokenized Revolution podcast. We have Alexo and Akin from Bondi Finance, and thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for inviting us. We are very happy to be here.
Cool.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I think I can kind of just, overview what I'm most interested in talking about and learning about is one, who you guys are, what Bondi Finance is, why Bondi Finance exists. And then I also am always interested to know, how is crypto working in emerging markets? I know you both have experience both in Argentina and in Turkey, which are, you guys hit the high inflationary events, both. You have the opportunities of a lifetime, So let's teach the world what opportunities are there. So if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about yourselves, your company, and what you do.
Well, go ahead.
Please.
Okay. So hello again. I'm Akin. We're the co-founders of Bondi Finance. And what we do at Bondi is very simply, we tokenize existing publicly traded corporate bonds, and we specifically focus on emerging market corporate bonds. These bonds these bonds tend to have very high minimum settlement amounts. So there are, in traditional markets, they are very illiquid and very inaccessible. They're really reserved for institutional players. But even for institutional players, the illiquidity poses a big disadvantage regarding investing in these assets. And we basically believe, we have a strong conviction of how tokenization is basically just common sense, and it's just the next step forward for finance. And we just having previous experience as well with dealing with corporate bonds, especially in Turkey. I actually can elaborate on that a little further. We just said that now was the time, to basically carry these assets on chain. We're debuting with, we're launching pretty soon on base, but we're gonna launch with emerging market corporate bonds. But our vision is just bringing accessibility to financial products, a whole financial ecosystem. So, as right after we launch, we will also launch our credit default swap bond insurance market, which usually tends to have very, very high settlements, like millions of dollars, and completely over the counter. Also tokenized forwards for local currency bonds. So there are a lot of things on the table that can be tokenized, that can be enhanced in a massive manner by being tokenized. And we're starting off with corporate bonds, but we're basically going to build the whole ecosystem around it.
You kind of answered this, but there's a lot of assets that you could have, my assumption is if you've gotten regulatory ability to tokenize an asset, you could kind of pick, why specifically did you pick corporate bonds as opposed to, what we're working on is sovereign debt. I've heard equities and things like that. What is it about corporate bonds that you think is going to work in your case?
So regarding corporate bonds, I would like to, as you said, by the way, first of all, tokenization is going to be huge, right? Even Michael Saylor, a Bitcoin maximalist, in 21 years, he expects the monetary base of the world to go quadruple, and basically tokenize assets even more, even like 1,000 trillion, really 1,000 trillion. So these are going to be really big things. So I'm sorry, the whole equities and securities to be 1,000 trillion, and out of this 350 trillion to be tokenized. Now, why corporate bonds? First of all, from a broad perspective, corporate bonds are really necessary for a country's economy to be successful. What we see in emerging markets is that these markets do not have financial debt. In other words, they do not have the ability to borrow money.
And even when you saw a debt market in an emerging market, it's going to be mostly government bonds.
Yes.
But corporate bonds are quintessential for an economy, for companies to take risks, to borrow more money, and then to invest more in infrastructure and expand the economy. So there is this overall vision that corporate bonds are really good for economy. In the last 20 years, all around the world, corporate financing, basically corporate bonds share in corporate financing doubled from 10% to 20%, which shows the need of a really global economy. It shows the need for corporate bonds in a really global economy. So this is why economies need corporate bonds. Now, why people need it. So the whole idea with Bondi is that we want to provide people real yield that is uncorrelated to crypto markets, and yield that is stable, but also high, also good for the appetite of crypto traders, right? Akin mentioned, we just had a bond expire, actually it got called, and it brought us an annualized 17.1% yield. It was a $300 million issuance, if I'm not mistaken. And it was from Zorlu Renewables, from an energy company in Turkey, one of the biggest companies in Turkey. And so what happens with these bonds is that they provide an asymmetric opportunity. But as the entry thresholds are so high, people just cannot simply invest in them. So why we do corporate bonds is that we enable people to invest in a very lucrative asset. Basically, we democratize access to an asset that wasn't accessible before, and we do this through crypto, as we think crypto's risk appetite is also great for corporate bonds.
I just heard we have an expert on the team who he'll announce himself in March. I won't talk too much about it, but someone who has 40 years of history in emerging markets, and he was telling me a story of one of the richest men in Asia became wealthy by just doing loans, micro loans to women in Bangladesh. And it's kind of interesting because there's all these opportunities like this in emerging markets, but how would I, as someone in the West, even know to
100%.
invest there, right? And
100%.
this is where I think what Bondi's doing is going to be incredible. The growth opportunities are not in the West. The West is great. I mean, I'm not hating on the West. I know a lot of people do, but
we don't see the
but in the West, you have large capital needs and modest gains from those. But in emerging markets, you have a lot of opportunity with no opportunity to fundraise, really, because the trust isn't there in many cases, or the knowledge isn't there. But if you could open up those markets, the opportunities are incredible. And so I believe that's in part what you're speaking to is let's
100%.
Yeah. Like a very interesting point in that topic is like what we saw like while we were investing before founding Bondi and with Bondi. So emerging market corporate bonds tend to be very underrated financially compared to their actual risk profiles. This is a very, very nice statistic that we like to share about. On average, all emerging market corporate bond classes have lower default rates while paying higher yields than US corporate bonds. So there's an overcompensation for these bonds just because of the fact that the issuer is based out of an emerging market. And when you check the statistics, when you check the data, it's actually statistically a lower risk asset than a random US corporate bond. So there's definitely a discrepancy between the actual risk profile and the pricing that happens in the traditional markets.
We have rating arbitration opportunities.
Well, arbitration at Bondi we say risk less, earn more, because we really believe that's the case for emerging market corporate bonds.
I'll try and hypothesize why I think that is, because it is interesting. Why is that? I'm going through a rating right now. and um, for our tokenized assets, right? And the major thing that I'm thinking about is, okay, 40% of the stuff I'm doing for a rating is unnecessary. You know, it's just kind of like a little bit of a bureaucratic obstacle. And the people who are helping, we're doing the rating, they're great people, and they've helped us become a better company. But I guess what I'm saying is I can understand why, because a lot of what goes into a rating of our ratings is not even to do with our asset or the riskiness of it. It's kind of like bureaucratic, legal policy documentation that is influenced by the system where it was written. For example, like a lot of ratings take corruption index, and so we're based, a lot of our stuff comes out of Mexico. If I issue a Mexican asset out of Mexico or one out of Switzerland, the rating will be different, even though they have the same risk profiles, which is really interesting. So I believe that's probably why the ratings are lower, because it seems unrelated to the actual asset, and
100%.
there's an opportunity. Ratings.
There's an actual notion in finance, which is a sovereign ceiling. It's a soft ceiling, which is respected by almost all common big credit rating agencies, and it basically kind of limits the maximum rating a corporation can get to its sovereign's rating. Let's say Turkey has a lot of debt obligations, and it has B minus. Then a Turkish company wouldn't be able to get, or in very rare cases, if it's doing 85% foreign exchange, maybe it will get a bit higher, a tad higher, and not higher for two. But it just basically limits all Turkish corporations to B minus. So this is an actual thing that exists in finance.
I think a great example of that is Ep.3, Argentina's national oil and gas company. Its rating is CCC or CCC plus or something. But when you actually look at the price and yields of the bonds, they're bonds that have 9.59% coupons have an actual yield of around 6-7%. So they're going higher than face value. But the company is rated CCC just because of the fact that it's based out of Argentina and the Argentine government has a stake in. Of course, there's a reason, right? Like it didn't come out of nowhere, the sovereign ceiling. But when it got started to be used just indiscriminately almost, there's a sovereign ceiling. Of course, there are use cases where it's very useful, it can be very useful, but sometimes it can really skew the actual situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we love those opportunities. Those are ARB opportunities that I think truth seekers will find. So the thing I love about tokenization is this exposes the interface of those opportunities to the world. And what I'd also like to see is potentially the Web3 space innovating on how to rate these things more appropriately. That you see a lot of morality injected into ratings too, like what they view as corruption and what they view as not. It's kind of makes no sense, If I, as an investor, I mean, I'll probably get myself in trouble here, but as an investor, I guess I want to not really think about, I don't know what I'll stop right there, but yeah, you're thinking about making money, and so there's, it's kind of what I want the focus to be. So one thing I'm very interested by is you guys are both in Argentina today, correct? And Bondi is out of Argentina. So how do two, what I would say, crypto Turkish warriors find themselves in Argentina, and why?
Actually, so I used to live in the US. I used to live in California. I just was in Turkey at that time. So we just decided to. It was like a bit random, not so random, but we just decided to be little nomads, to be honest with you, while we're doing this. But we knew that Buenos Aires and Argentina had a very strong Web3 community.
Yeah.
So our motivation was, okay, let's get together, start working on Bondi. And while we're working on Bondi, let's be digital nomads and be at places where the Web3 community is strong. But after coming here, we saw we liked the talent here first, and second, Argentina has been a great base for Bondi, to be honest. So how we found we kind of came here with some expectations, and it definitely exceeded our expectations. The talent pool, the community in Argentina is incredible. We're part of the Crecimiento community. We're actually at the hub, the Crecimiento's co-working space right now. It's a very motivated, motivated community, and some great products come out of Argentina. So I guess a broad explanation would be that.
Yeah. What is so having you have experience with where were you in California? When you were in California, where were you?
Irvine.
That's where I'm at today, by the way. I live in Irvine, California. That's funny.
Yeah,
so
I still live in Irvine.
I want to give people some insight into how crypto is unique in Argentina. Well, could you kind of explain, what the crypto ecosystem is like, how people use crypto, and then we'll follow up with what do they use. So, but first, what's unique about it, and how is it used from a user perspective in Argentina?
Well, so I would say, both in Turkey and Argentina, these are countries with the 5 highest inflation in the world currently. It's improving, but there's very high inflation. And basically their currencies, their local currencies, is what we call a soft currency, right? So a soft currency is just basically a devaluing currency.
Yeah.
So when you have a very high inflation and zero trust in your local currency, what people want to do is to save their money somehow. And they used to save it in real dollars, like pillow dollars. In Turkey, it's called pillow gold, right? They just buy these hard assets. Yeah. But now with Bitcoin, there's even maybe harder assets, and especially the stable coin revolution. All those people who used to save in dollars now can do it. I wouldn't say without intermediaries, but in a much easier fashion. And this stable coin revolution is actually shows up in numbers. If you check both Turkey and Argentina, these are not necessarily the highest in crypto adoption. Also, they're in the top 20, both of them. They're very strong communities, but especially in stablecoin adoption, I think they're both a bit about 20% and in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken, together with Singapore and United Arab Emirates, probably. What I'm trying to say is that it's very good to build a product in Argentina or in emerging countries where people already need the underlying asset, which is stable coins. In order to invest in Bondi, you need stable coins, right? And it's also a very good intersection because dollar has inflation too. People in Turkey and in Argentina, like regular people, they would laugh at you. They use dollars to save, but actually the truth is it's actually losing on average in the last 2 years 2.5% of its purchasing power, right? So what we give people is not only try saving while still, even though you don't know, losing your purchasing power, but beat the inflation, go above it. Not only save money, but increase your purchasing power. And now people had stable coins, which is much easier than real dollars. And now they have a very easy access to stuff to do, cool stuff to do, like Etherfuse, like Bondi. They have access to cool stuff to do with this. What's used to be a saving vehicle, I would say.
And especially in Argentina, in Argentina, the currency controls. That's not the case in Turkey. Actually, Turkey relatively has a pretty free and stable financial system compared to Argentina. I would say it's not in the same league. Argentina is sad. It's sad, but it's very dysfunctional, the financial system. So the amount of dollars an individual can buy in a month is capped at $200. So people just use stable coin to buy dollars in Argentina. Black market. They just use it as a black market dollar. alternative. And that's, I think, like it's a great way to get around the foreign exchange limitations in Argentina. In Turkey, it's not that, like, because people can freely access dollars, but it's still, especially in self-custodial front, like to be able to have a self-custodial borderless dollar, people definitely resort to stable coins.
Do they have, what about usage? Do Argentina, are people purchasing and selling products with stable coins?
Much more in Argentina than Turkey. I used to live together with Akin, and we used to pay our rent in stable coins. No, in Turkey it's not really used in transactions, but in Argentina, I would say yes.
Cool. What are the, well, let's do this with Argentina, then I want to tell you a story. When I was in Turkey, I was stable, which just blew my mind. And they probably have this in Argentina, but I was with what I think is the crypto king of Turkey. He's not Turkish, but he lives there now, and he's got it all figured out. So, but in Argentina, what would you say are the top 5 crypto apps people are using?
Percent.
Yeah.
Fellow, DPO, these local exchanges, probably these are not in the top 5. Lemon Cash 100%. What else I can?
I mean, Lemon Cash really stands out because they have the Lemon card that it just allows you, it gives Bitcoin payback and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Cashback, sorry. Apart from that, there's in Buenos Aires especially, there's a Pinta token, which with which you can buy beers in a lot of
Nice.
Buenos Aires bars. Like there's a bar chain called Temple. It's like a popular bar chain. It uses they accept Pinta tokens, so they definitely use that in that regard.
The cheapest beers in Argentina are bought with Pinta tokens, and people really know and use them. Like, it's a very good example.
That's awesome. Pinta token, PINTA.
Yeah,
PNT.
exactly.
PNT.
PNT is like the ticker, the symbol.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a look at that. I've never heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
So-
it's really cool.
I do
We
have a-
actually had a crypto event together with Pinta, and we used their tokens to offer people beers. It was very good. You should check it out.
I'm going to check that out. I did meet the founder of Lemon Cash. I think he's in San Francisco now. But when he heard that we went to Mexico, it blew his mind. He's like, "Gringos going to Mexico? I've never heard that." I don't understand. So those are good people. I'm glad to hear that that's still doing well. So Lemon Cash, awesome. When I was in Turkey, from a U.S. perspective, this was a pretty wild experience. We went to an OTC right by the bazaar. So I'm going to say I didn't do it. I followed somebody who did this. Okay, and I'm saying that to cover myself in case. But you would just walk into a store and say, "I have 1,000 sol." Some guy with a giant rolling box would come by, bring you a wad of cash, no questions asked, and you'd walk out. That was the most incredible.
We have a lot of experience with Akin with this. We actually did a lot of Turkish lira USDT arbitrage this way.
Yeah.
The volume, actually, USDT volume, even reaches $30 million in Grand Bazaar. It's probably one of the biggest. I don't know the numbers, but I would say one of the biggest concentrated P2P markets in the world. There is no such a thing in Argentina, but in Turkey there is, and it's very common to see a guy walking with a bag of $1 million. And
the interesting thing about Grand Bazaar, it of course has a symbolic value as a tourist attraction, but it is actually a financial center. Like it still is a very big financial center. A lot of foreign exchange and commodity exchange goes around. Some of course, like a lot of black market deals, not necessarily illegal, but maybe like some more implicit deals. There's lots of volumes.
I got my wife some nice stuff there.
Yeah.
I got bags for her here. And I was pretty interesting. To me, it doesn't look like a place that would be safe to carry a bag of $1 million around, but it was like they seem to have no fear rolling those boxes. So there's a lot of trust and I would say social contract there is to obey this.
A very old social contract at that, like a 500-year-old social contract.
Shilling Istanbul a little bit on top of what Akin said. It's actually, if you go to Wikipedia, it will say the world's oldest mall or shopping area. It has a 500 years history, and it's really, if not oldest, one of the oldest in the whole world.
Now, I've heard stories, I know it's not the same in Argentina, but you calling someone on a phone saying I have stable coins and someone comes on a motorcycle. Is that?
Yeah.
It is the case in Argentina.
It is the case.
It is the case.
Okay. So it's similar, but it's a little more discreet. So
it's more discreet.
Yeah. It's much less volume. You can't do high volume in a high trust environment like Turkey, I would say.
Yeah.
And of course, like I'd say the Argentine society kind of has a bit less trust.
Yeah.
Like especially Kaşa, Florida would be the equivalent of Grand Bazaar in Turkey.
Yeah.
Grand Bazaar, like Istanbul in general, is relatively safe compared to a city of its size. I think Buenos Aires is safe too. I think it has a bad reputation for like that it doesn't deserve. But in general, like people are more prudent when it comes to kind of transacting with cash in Argentina compared to Turkey. So the volumes are smaller. But of course, like the delivery guy, the dollar delivery guy, like that doesn't really exist in Turkey. Like that's kind of more of an Argentine thing.
Yeah.
You know, one day I want to do like a TV series of just like different OTC styles across the world.
Yeah, it would be so good. I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Well, you know, to wrap this up, how can people get a hold of you? When are you launching? What can we tell people listening about you? And
let me say something about the credit ratings before we wrap it up. I just want to really say it because it's also about how people can find us, and then maybe Akin can finish it. But what I really wanted to say is, so we actually have developed a bond spectrum model. It's modeled after Edward Altman's Z-score. And this basically, the point with Altman's score is that he wanted to eliminate the political, moral, whatever, all the bias and focus only on the balance sheet of a company. And then he modified it for emerging markets, right? We basically took this model, just add some sauce on it. And what we did, like, we made it much more intuitive for people. Color coded it, put it on a scale from 0 to 100. So I would really encourage people to check it out. We are proud of it. Our website to check it out, check the app in action is democratized.bond, and they can just read about our bond spectrum in bondifinance.io/white paper. We have all our docs where we explain this, and I just encourage everyone to try it at democratized.bond app and the bond spectrum. We'll be live at the same website in a week or so. We're really excited for it. That's it from me.
Awesome. So we'll promote, we'll link you guys. And I also think we can do a lot of work together. We don't plan on getting the corporate bond space, but we do have access to those assets, especially in Mexico and Brazil. So let's find ways to work together and get people exposure to these assets.
Absolutely. Very
excited
about it.
Let's not overpromise, but we really do. We want to explore some synergies. We think there's a lot of things to do. Yeah,
for sure. We're both trying to solve an important mission together, so we'll figure it out. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you guys. Have a great Friday night, and maybe someday in the future we'll start an OTC desk across. Get some motorcyclers and big boxes, backpacks going. So.